Well, good morning. Welcome to our weekly Bible talk. Now, like I introduced last week, we're in the book of Exodus. So go ahead and get your Bibles open there. Book of Exodus, second book of the Bible. I remind you a little bit about the background of Exodus. It's written by Moses, roughly 1400 BC, to the Jews who have just left Egypt in the Exodus. You'll remember that for 400 years they were slaves in Egypt. They were cruelly treated by harsh taskmasters, but God raises up Moses. Moses leads them out of Egypt, but they've got to make sense of the situation they find themselves in. What in the world are we doing here? We're wandering around the wilderness. We've got to go to the promised land. So the entire Pentateuch, and especially Exodus, is written to help these Jews make sense of the experience that they just went through. Now, obviously, we're not Jews and we're not slaves in Egypt, and yet we worship the very same God. The God that we know through Jesus is the God and Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And because of that, there's an awful lot we can learn from Exodus about the character of God, the plan of God. And personally, like I talked about last week, I love the entire Pentateuch. It really is the foundation for the rest of the Bible. If you don't have a decent understanding of the Pentateuch, so much of the rest of the Bible is just not going to make any sense at all. So we're here in Exodus. Last week, we looked at the way in which the people of Israel were in Egypt and they flourished. They were fruitful. They multiplied. And they went from about 70 people when Jacob brought his family down there to now, 400 years later, roughly 2 million people. Keep that in mind. When we're talking about the events in Exodus, imagine just huge, gigantic groups of people. When we get to, say, the crossing of the Red Sea, don't think that it's just, Moses and like 25 folks crossing the Red Sea. No, we're talking about a group of roughly 2 million, possibly more people crossing the Red Sea. Last week, we also saw the way in which, because the Israelites were multiplying, the Israelites were very concerned. And Pharaoh started oppressing them harshly. He